I'm Betty Swann, and welcome to our show, Wisdom in the Night, where you get help for the tough decisions in your life. Tonight I have a great guest. He is a financial counselor and a youth leader. Welcome, Willie Natal. Willie, this is great. You look young. You look like you're barely out of being a young person yourself, but it's not true, right?
No, ma'am. I'll be 37 in April.
37. You look like you're 20.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you like that, too. The older you get, the more you like it, right?
I do. I don't mind it.
Yeah. Well, Willie, tell us about yourself. Tell me about growing up, where in your family, your background. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I was born in Puerto Rico. I grew up in New York and New Jersey area. My parents are pastors my whole life. One of the hardships, being a pastor's kid, it's not all it's cracked up to be. My parents pastored a couple of churches, so I was one of those kids that moved around a lot. Last place my parents pastored, well, they're still pastoring. They're in Florida. Before that was Patterson, New Jersey, where I'm located as the youth leader at my church, Harvest Outreach Ministries, where my pastor, Edward Ramirez, is our senior pastor. So that's where the Lord led me back to.
If people that are of a Latino background could only understand, if you can be bilingual, it opens up the world to you.
Amen, it does.
I mean, all kinds of jobs.
Amen, that's the reason why I thank my mom. Not only jobs, in ministry as well. Mm-hmm. You're able to reach out more people, in Spanish, English. So it benefits a lot to know two languages.
Yeah. Now, was your dad Latino?
My dad, yes. My dad is Puerto Rican, but as we studied our life, our family, our heritage, our tree, we go back to Italy, so Venice, which was pretty cool to find out at one point in my life. But he's straight up Puerto Rican. He's New Yorican because he still has that that accent and and my mom. So they're both very well in the way they speak English. Just got that funny accent.
Okay, so how did you get along being a preacher's kid? What was that like?
That was not fun at first. Being a preacher's kid is hard. People expect you to be perfect. People expect you to take up your dad's shoes someday. But growing up, I always considered myself the most rebellious pastor's kid ever.
Did you try to be that? Was that your goal?
Yeah, it was my goal. I got in trouble a lot. Sunday school teachers did not like me. I remember one year we literally had 12 teachers teach the class because
you kept running them off?
Mm-hmm, crying. So it was a lot of fun for me. I just didn't like the fact my dad moved around a lot because God used him a lot, and I knew that, and a lot of churches needed his help, and they would always station him somewhere that the church was in need. But also came at a point, maybe the early 90s and the late 80s, my dad had a mentality where it was God, church, and family.
No, that's wrong.
But that's 80s pastors, 90s, kind of had that type of mentality. But then as the late 90s, my dad realized God, family, and then church. Mm-hmm. That's your first ministry. I actually, in my studies, and I've learned that it's actually church, God, wife, kids, and then church. Because you keep your wife happy. As keeping your wife happy and loving your wife, your kids will know that, that's the way to treat a woman.
I've heard that the best thing a couple can do, a man can do, for his family is to love his wife.
Yes, that's the whole key. Because remember this, as they get older, your daughter, I have a daughter, and someday she's going to find a husband or a boyfriend who becomes her husband. And I'm the first example she's going to see. Mm-hmm. And she's going to say, hey, you don't treat me like my dad treats my mom. You're not the guy for me. My son's going to know that this is the way to treat a woman. And I try every day to be that example for them. My daughter the other day tells me she wants to be a pastor when she grows up. And I looked at her and I said, what? But it made me feel good because I'm doing something right. Because at that age, I didn't want to know anything about being a pastor and wanted to be like my dad. I just didn't.
So you ran from that?
Oh, I ran from it. I was the prodigal son. I decided to live a crazy life. I got in trouble a lot. You know, if you think about it, I got into it. I just wanted to really make the pastor or the being a pastor's kid disappear. Just that identity. But like the prodigal son, I was always kind of like Peter. When Peter decided to run away because Jesus was about to get crucified, or he got crucified, people recognized Peter because he resembled Jesus. So wherever I went, people still said, something different about you. They used to say, are you going to be a priest? And I'm like, I'm not even Catholic.
Oh, wow.
So people would...
They saw that on you?
They saw it just for having a normal conversation. And I used to get mad. I used to be like, look...
Like Peter cussing and saying, no.
Just like that. I'm like, why are you bringing Jesus into this conversation? We were talking about something completely different, but people realized that they saw something different. I didn't want to admit to it. I knew what I was called for.
You did know?
I did know it.
How did you know that?
It's when God always spoke, whether it was me hearing his voice or people telling me, I fought it. I knew God was telling me, I need you and I want you for this. I want you for this. I want you for this. But I didn't, because I saw the tears my parents shed. I saw the hardship. I saw the going days that my dad would literally spend every dime he had in church, and no one really thanked him for it or appreciated it. They just took advantage of it, and I didn't want that. And I used to tell my dad that, and I used to tell my dad, I'll never be a pastor because I can't do what you're doing. They're taking advantage of you. And my dad told me something. He says, look, you can have the calling over your life, and you do, but until you love people, it'll never come to be. And to this, and it honestly happened maybe like 4 years ago, where I had that encounter and I said, oh, wow. And I started loving people even when they treated...
Okay, now let's talk right now. You know, this show's about wisdom in the night. There's people watching this show that are just heard you say that, and they think, I don't love people. How did you go from not loving people to loving them?
Jesus. I literally took that example. I saw that Jesus was being talked about, was being pushed away, was being spit at, was being hit, was crucified for us. And he still loved them even till the end. And I'm going, Lord, how can you love these people? These people literally hated you. And you still said, forgive them because they don't know what they do. And all it took is love. Love can change any moment, anything. And I said, okay, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to love you.
Okay, so what'd you do?
I started loving people even if they talk about it.
Okay, give me an example.
I started forgiving people that did stuff to me back in the past. I started forgiving people that did things to my parents, because half of my grudge was the people that did stuff to my parents, because as a pastor's kids, something about pastor's kids, we're very protective of our parents. If you say something about my father might not come to you in that way, but I would. I was that bold. I'm like, you talked about my dad. He might not come to you, but I'm coming to you. And that was how I was.
Well, good for you, though. You took up for your dad.
Always did. But I decided to say, you know, let me try this, God. I'm going to start forgiving and letting go. And I had, at one time with my youth, we talked about forgiveness. And I told them, I said, forgiveness is like being in a prison and you letting the prisoner out, but realizing you're that prisoner. So I was letting myself free from that, from anger, because it brings anger, it brings hate. You can't stand people. You have this, you know, and then it keeps you a disconnect from God as well, because you're not loving him. You say you love God, you love Jesus, but you don't love your neighbor, you don't love that person. As much as they hate you, as much as they don't like you, love them back. I mean, I'll be honest, there was a moment I got to the point I didn't love my dad. I hated my dad for what he was as a pastor because of it. And I remember that still chokes me up, because he's a great man. And I remember hearing a preacher once say, you know, love conquers all. He said that, just that. He says, conquers all. He said, you got to love through the hate. And I remember I went to my dad one night, and he doesn't even know this story, But he was laying in bed, and I came from a powerful youth service, and that's when I was like 17, 18 years old, and I told him, I said, I went and gave him a kiss. And I said, Dad, I love you. And he looked at me weird, like, because we were having so many arguments in the past, and I let that anger go at that moment with him, and I realized that love conquers all. I was holding so much, and I felt so free after that, and it took years. And I tell people sometimes it's not overnight. This is something you choose. It's a choice we make every day to love, to forgive. It's a choice we make to accept Christ. It's a choice we do to have a relationship with Him. Everything we do in life is a choice, and this is something I teach my young people every day. It's a choice you make in life. Is it to forgive, to love, to hate, to forgive? It's all a choice.
Now, these young people, who are you talking about? What age are they, and where are they?
Well, at my church, me and my wife, which we are the youth ministers, the youth pastors at our church. We have all ages. Sometimes it could be a different class, but I like to teach the 10 and up. They're a little older. You could be a little more raw with them.
You work with teenagers too?
Yes, teenagers. All the way.
Do you see kids there with a lot of troubles?
Yes. It's the inner city. So a lot of these kids go through a lot. One of the things that I'm dealing with that I've seen even in the news, a lot of these kids are committing suicide and taking their own lives. And that really hits home for me because I see that happening even in my own family sometimes that thank God they haven't followed through with it, but just the idea and the thought that they have to want to take their lives because they hate a situation or they hate the way they're going and they're so young and they have so much and they think they have no purpose when the Bible teaches us that He created us with a purpose. And I try to instill that in them. But when I see and I read in the news that a young person decided to take their lives because they were bullied or because they were disliked or made fun of or mom and dad don't love you, and the Bible teaches us that even if your mom or your dad leave you, God is always going to be there with you. So I deal with this stuff every week. You know, if I'm not on the phone with them, I'm at the service with them or I'm praying over them.
Now, do you help them get a personal relationship with the Lord too?
That's my main goal.
It is. How did you get it?
Well, being brought up in a Christian home, our moms always, and my dad always taught us about the Word, but they always told us one thing: we teach you, but it's up to you to believe it and to accept it one day.
And how old were you when you came to believe in all of that?
I always believed in it, even at 4 years old.
Even as a little kid?
Yeah, because at 5 years old, I did my first message.
Really? Preaching?
Yeah, I preached about the lamb that was lost. And we have a song about it. It's a Spanish song when I was a kid. And I sung about it, and I remember like it was yesterday. I don't know why I remember that one thought at 5 years old. They had to take the mic away from me because I didn't want to let go of the mic.
Really? You liked it so much?
I liked it. And I've always believed in it. Plus, I've seen the power of God over people's lives. I've seen people transformed and healed by it. My mom just was healed from stage 4 cancer.
Really?
Yeah, back in November, I think it was. And we just celebrated her life. And she went through it for 4 or 5 years, and us praying constantly for her. My dad is always involved in drug rehab centers. He's
in what?
Drug rehab centers. Christian,
Drug?
Yeah, rehab centers, drug and alcohol. And he's always involved in that since the 80s. In the state of New Jersey, he was the founder of the first Latino Christian, drug and alcohol rehab center. And I saw men come in there transformed, return back to their families, and to this day, still sober, still men who are after God's own heart, you know. And I've seen that.
That's beautiful, though, because those people that are caught up in it, they and their families sometimes think there's no hope.
You see that all the time, and it goes with my kids at church. You know, they see maybe there's no hope.
Even in their own family, they probably see it, right?
Most of it is when it's in your own family. Your own family sometimes are the first ones to push you away, and I make sure that my kids know that we love them. I make sure that they know that they have a purpose. I make sure that they're important, they're intelligent, they're wise. Even if they don't see it, I see it for you until you start seeing it. I'm believing it for you.
So you believe in them until they can believe in themselves,
exactly.
Don't you?
Yes, and I make sure they hear it over and over again because they've heard so much of the negativity over and over again that's what they've believed for so many years, so many months. Now, let me give the positive in you and start believing in this. I want you to know that you are beautifully made. You are, in God's eyes, you're His image, you're perfection. You might not see that. Some boy or some girl said something different, but you know what? It's more important what He thinks of you.
And what kind of results do you see from that?
Smiles, happiness. You see them happy to come to church, know that it's their safe haven, that they come in, they know that this is what it is. You see them laugh during the services. You see them shout. You see them being themselves. You see them be more respectful because they know that they said something wrong, but they go, "I'm sorry, Will." I'm like, "I know, it's okay. We're working on it." And you see them just bringing their friends. When you see them bringing their friends, and they go, "Will, I brought a friend of mine." I'm like, wow, okay. To me, that shows that something's working. God is doing something there, that they want their friends. They're not being selfish with what they're receiving, and they want their friends to also receive it. And I see that every week, and they come in. One guy brought like 3 of his friends that are football players, and he goes, "I'm trying to bring my whole football team." And I said, "Bro, bring them all in. They're all welcomed." And I see that, and all it takes is love, and just giving the love that Christ puts in us, put in them as well, and just follow what the Word teaches.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of challenges do you go through? You as a person, because I know you've got a regular life, you have a business. I want to know about it a little bit, about what you do that way. But what kind of challenges do you go through in your own life?
It's putting everything into order. I work for hospitals in New Jersey.
What do you do?
I help patients that can't afford their hospital bills. It's financial assistance. Through the state. The state gives an assistance program for them. If they qualify because of their income, we help them out, which I love to do. I love to be able to help out patients because, hospital bills are no joke. Your co-insurance, your deductibles, your co-payments sometimes can be pretty high. So we try to help them as much as we can. If we can't help them, we direct them to other insurance companies like Medicaid or Medicare, anything that the category that they would fit into. Then you have, I also have a second part-time job.
Oh, you do? What is it?
With TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network.
What do you do there?
I do the floor managing, assistant floor managing, and also photography, which I love to do. That's, on show basis. And
would you like to be in that kind of work more and more?
Oh, yes. I love that work.
What do you like about it?
The atmosphere, the people. It's a Christian environment as well. Everyone that comes in is expecting something. Just seeing the people's faces.
You mean like expecting God to do something?
Yes, miracles. To see the speaker speak, it's like being in church every day. You see the speaker bring a word. Just the excitement, the headsets, like what's going on. Okay, and just having, especially when I take pictures, they say something. So when you catch them in that right moment, and I love that. I love that.
So you're really drawn to the arts, aren't you?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So you like acting?
Yes, acting is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. You can be anything.
Yeah.
And just,
well, let me ask you something. Part of this show is about what you think God's purpose is for your life so far. And at 37, it's pretty obvious to see. It's with youth. It's helping men with addictions. But you're also seeing a side of yourself that you wish you could develop more, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Which is acting, producing, directing.
I love that. Yes, ma'am. I've been doing it more often in our church because our pastor also has a TV show on Tuesdays with TBN, and I help out producing the shows or
Now,
getting.
what is his name?
Edward Ramirez.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Pastor. So so we set up these shows. So I enjoy doing it. I enjoy just getting the guest on because I get to get powerful men and women of God on the show, and to see them be used by the Lord and touch so many lives.
Yeah, I know. Well, now I want to talk some more about any challenges. Have you encountered? Of course, your mom having cancer, stage 4 cancer. That was a real challenge for your family, right?
Oh, it was very challenging. You see your dad, and that's his love of his life, and you see him sometimes break down and cry, and then I'm the oldest. So I see myself trying to take the control and try to be the man at that moment. And that was me for like 4 or 5 years, trying to just, be the help that they need. And my mom was with us in November at our church, and she was giving a women's conference. And she spoke about it, and it really touched me because she, in front of everyone, just thanked me for everything I've done, and I don't need that. But to know that she appreciates it and she saw that means the world to me, because that's my mom. That's my dad.
Well, if you were going to give some advice, because that's what we're really about on this show, if you were going to give some advice to, let's say, a young person in the inner city life, where everywhere he looks, there's destruction, there's devastation, there's heartache, there's confusion, and he has big dreams, what would you advise him to do in that situation?
Never give up on your dreams. I was there once.
You were?
Yes, ma'am. I didn't think there was any hope for me. I even thought that God's purpose in my life was gone. I didn't think he needed me anymore. I didn't think he wanted me anymore. I didn't think he even loved me at one point. And I was very angry at the situation. But it was the opposite. He was always there. He believed in me. And he never turned his back on me. When everyone else turned their back on me, he didn't. But I thought it was over. I thought that I couldn't. I thought I messed up too many times. But if anyone that is watching this and is listening to my voice, it's not over. I don't care how many times you fell. I don't care how many times you tripped. I don't care how many times you just said no to an opportunity. You still have a chance to say yes to that opportunity. You still have a chance to get back up and let God use you.
So it's never too late,
It's never too late. It's never too late. If it's too late, it's because you didn't want to do it, because you chose to not to. I tell my kids at church, I said, one of my favorite words is choice, because you have a choice.
It's one of my favorite words.
Yeah. It's choice. We all have a choice to make.
You even have a choice about your attitude.
Exactly. You have a choice to make a mistake, but from that mistake to learn from it, to make the choice of not making that mistake again. So it's all about a choice. You have a choice to believe in what the Lord has for you, and you have a choice not to believe it. You have a choice to believe in yourself or believe what other people say about you. So if you see destruction around you, you see that everything around you, your living environment, it's temporary. If you keep the faith and you keep marching on, and you keep believing it and going for your dreams, I promise they will come. Look, I'm sitting here next to you right now. Not in a million years would I think that I would be that important to be interviewed or even asked to be interviewed. And I'm here. To me, this is a dream come true. This is something that, people told me in the past, like, I see you doing this, or I see you doing that. And
they said they saw you doing this?
Yeah,
you thought it was impossible?
I thought it was. I said, me? Why me? There's, you have, sometimes we have this low self-esteem about ourselves. And we think, no, I don't have the right words to say. You get that other preacher guy or get this other speaker guy. But God has you for a purpose.
He wanted you.
Yeah, he has given you that word.
Right.
He has his own word. Right. It's like I told our last youth pastor before they gave me the position, I told him, and he's a very tall guy, big feet. And I looked at his feet and I said, hey, Pastor Alex, those are some big shoes to fill. And he told me something that I've never heard it. He said, you have your own shoes to fill. Wow. Don't look at my shoes. And that's the problem. Sometimes we look at other people when God already has created you with your own purpose.
Well, I have another piece of advice I'd like you to give. I'm sure you're aware of how many suicides go on, and we've talked about that, but what kind of advice would you give a kid that's been bullied or has been made fun of, and just they don't have the joy, they don't have the pleasure in life that they ought to have, and they're just ready to give it all up?
Don't do it. There's so much more to life. Like I said, you have a purpose. Suicide is not the answer. I know things might look bad right now. I know that everything around you seems to be falling apart, but there's still hope if you choose to believe that. hold on to God. Even if you don't believe in God, go find someone that's going to give you the right word. There's people out there that do love you. There's people out there that want the best for you. You mean something to someone. Taking your life is not going to change anyone except the people you love to really hurt because you don't exist anymore. I don't care what anyone has said about you. I don't care if you're hated at school. I don't care if you're bullied and you can't sleep at night because you're afraid of going back to school the next day. Someone loves you. Someone cares for you. Reach out. That's the problem. Sometimes they don't reach out. They keep it to themselves to the moment that they explode. I mean, now kids are going on social media and doing it on social media to the world. And it's sad and it hurts to see that. But there is hope. You just have to look for it. You have to reach out. And if you don't, and you don't find someone, keep reaching out. You are loved, you are wanted, you are needed, you were made with a purpose. You were created by God. You are His perfection. He said when we were created, He saw that we were good. You were good. He didn't say, oh, I messed up. No, you were good. You were created that way. So suicide, yes, between the ages of 10 to 24, over 4,000 kids a year take their lives.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
That's so many kids. And no one's reaching out to these kids sometimes. There's not help. Sometimes the church is worried about other things and they're not worried about these kids. And that's why with my students, it's one of my biggest things is to really put that inside them, that they mean something.
Well, you have heard Willie talking tonight and going over what goes on with young people today. I hope it's given you kind of an understanding of people around you and then an understanding of the kids around you so that you could be a person that speaks hope into somebody's life. And for those of you that have thought so seriously about, I don't even want to be on this earth anymore, did you listen that God has a purpose for you? He's got a plan. You don't need to miss that. You need to hang on until you find it. So thank you so much for tuning in tonight. It wasn't an accident that you turned on the TV. I hope you received some wisdom and that you have a great rest of the night, whether you're going to sleep or you're going to work. I'll see you next time. Bye. Hello, I'm Betty Swann, the woman who interviews people on the show. I want to tell you about something we're doing that you might want to be a part of. Feeding people with pennies and small change you find. The exchange rate makes them valuable. I saved $3.22, told my friends on social media, and they shared it. $215,000 has come in, 100% goes for food. We've fed people in 21 countries. Come help us.